Hello and welcome to the session. In this video, we'll discuss about linear discriminant analysis, commonly known as LDA. So what is LDA? So basically LDA, that is linear discriminant analysis, is used in supervised machine learning to solve multi-class classification problems. In the previous video we saw PCA. Now PCA, that is principal component analysis, is also used for a similar purpose. It is used for classification as well as dimensionality reduction, but PCA is mainly used in unsupervised machine learning where you do not have labels to your data sets. But LDA is used for classification problems for supervised machine learning algorithms where you have labels to your data sets. Now, other than that, the main purpose of LDA, other than classification, is the main purpose is dimensionality reduction. So just like PCA, LDA is also very commonly used for dimensionality reduction, and therefore it is very important in data science as it helps to optimize the machine learning models. Now LDA is also known as normal discriminant analysis or discriminant function analysis, and it follows a generative model framework. So the goal of LDA is, main goal of LDA is to project the data set into a lower dimensional space. So normally when we are working in machine learning, we will be having high dimensional data sets. So just like in PCA, LDA, the main purpose here also is to reduce the dimensionality of the data sets from a higher dimensional space to lower dimensional space. Thereby, what happens is when you reduce your dimensions to of your data sets to lower dimension space, you will avoid overfitting, which can be possible later when you have finished your work and you're testing for performance. So when you're testing the performance of an algorithm, overfitting can become a huge problem. So to avoid overfitting, we can use LDA, where LDA will, in a large extent, it will help you to reduce the overfitting issue, also called as curse of dimensionality. And also one more advantage is when you are reducing the dimensions, it will definitely reduce the computational cost, as the resources required for computation of processing is very less. So what is the general LDA approach? Now the approach, see, in the last video we discussed about PCA. So what's the difference? That would be the next question. Now LDA is also very similar to PCA, that is principal component analysis. But in addition to PCA, in LDA, we find component access that maximizes the variance of our data. Okay, so when we are working on LDA problems, we have seen PCA problems in the last video. Try to compare the problems of PCA with LDA. You will find out that an additional step which we have here in LDA is we find the component access that maximizes the variance in our data. So additionally in LDA, we are interested in the access that maximizes the separation between the classes or multiple classes. So basically here in PCA, it's not just about dimensionality reduction, we are also the generate access, where we are interested in seeing that the access is reducing the separation between the classes. Now, why do we go for dimensionality reduction? We saw in the last video PCA, in this video we're discussing LDA, and in the next video we will be dealing with one more dimensionality reduction method, that is SVD. Now, why do we have it? So the advantages of dimensionality reduction is, as I said, it will reduce your computation cost because the resources required would be less. In addition to that, you avoid overfitting, right? Where you actually minimize the errors in the parameter estimation, and this is also commonly called as curse of dimensionality. So what is curse of dimensionality? Curse of dimensionality is an issue, it's a problem, right, where the errors, where it will lead to overfitting issues because the dimensionality of your data set is so huge that the errors in your parameter estimation will be very big, thereby resulting in overfitting. So if you go for dimensionality reduction, you can reduce the curse of dimensionality or you can avoid the overfitting. Now coming to what's the difference between PCA versus LDA. We have seen PCA in the last session, right? So we saw some problems as well where we generated two principal components, PC1 and PC2, and we saw that these two components are orthogonal to each other, as you see in this diagram. See, the orange cross marks are nothing but your data sets, right? So you have these cross marks are nothing but your data sets, which we have reduced to principal components PC1 and PC2, which are orthogonal to each other. So basically the purpose of PCA is you are generating accesses. PC1 will basically have maximum variance in your data, and PC2 will have the next level of variance, not the maximum but one variance lesser, little lesser compared to PC1. When we are talking about LDA, what is more important in this is we are trying to maximize the separation between the two classes. So this is one class and this is another class. Blue is one class, green is another class, and these are the data points. That the cross marks are the data points. So here the goal is not just dimensionality reduction. The main goal, in addition to what we do in dimensionality reduction, is we want to maximize the separation, right? This horizontal line which you see here is the component axis, which is denoting the separation of classes, right? It is showing the separation of blue class with respect to green class, and the goal is to maximize this line, maximize the separation. Okay, so other than that, the main difference is, as I told you, PCA is an unsupervised algorithm, right? So basically here you will be doing classifications for data sets where there are no labels. Why? Because it ignores the class labels. PCA will ignore the class labels, and the goal of PCA is to find the directions which have maximum variance, directions which are nothing but the principal components. We saw this in the last class. Now LDA is a supervised machine learning, and it computes the directions here, and the directions here we call it as linear discriminants, which will represent the axis that have maximizes the separation between the multiple classes. So LDA is a supervised technique. You're computing the directions, which we call it as linear discriminants, which are representing the axis, this one, which maximizes separation between blue and green. Now coming to this diagram here, what you see in this figure is you have seen two different classes, black circles and green circles. So when you try to classify these black circles or separate these two data points, if I'm using, however I draw this dotted line, I'm not really able to separate the black line. See, if I draw here, I still have one black circle here. If I try to draw like this, I still have a black circle here. If I try to draw a line like this, I'm not really able to separate the black points from the greens, or the black circles from the green circles. So basically figure 1, we are seeing that it is not linearly separable. So in this case you can go for LDA, where it attempts to separate them using red dash line. So the same data points which you see here, we are trying to separate here in the second figure using LDA, and this is a red line. This red line is generated by LDA, where it is trying to separate the black and green circles. So what you are seeing here is it uses both the x-axis and y-axis to generate a new axis. So basically LDA has generated this new axis, which is the red line, where it is trying to maximize the distance. See, the goal is different. In LDA we are trying to maximize the distance between the means of the two classes. So this is the distance, or the new axis. These dotted lines which you see here are the distance or the axis which is generated from the LDA, and the goal here is to maximize this dotted lines, the distance of this dotted lines. So when you maximize this dotted lines, you can minimize the variations between these two classes. So figure 2, we are seeing the implementation of LDA. We are trying to we have generated the red line is the LDA axis which is generated, and this basically the goal of this red line is to maximize the separation between the two classes. So the goal of LDA is to what? To find directions in the feature space that best separates the classes, and also maximize the difference in between the classes while minimizing the spread within the class. So we are maximizing the difference. I said the difference between the classes, still ensuring the spread within the class is not big. Now let's see the algorithm behind LDA. So this algorithm you please remember, so that this algorithm will be useful in solving the problem which will be done in the next video. So first step in LDA is you have to compute the mean vector. So basically, if suppose I have two classes, let's say C1 and C2, I have to find the mean for both the classes. So the mean formula is the same. You have to sum up the data points and divide by the number of data points. Therefore the formula is mi is the mean 1 by ni, where ni is the number of samples in class Ci. Sum up all the data points which are represented by x, where x are the data points belonging to the class Ci. So this is the first step. The second step is you have to find two things now. You have to find the class scatter matrix SW, and you have to find between class scatter matrix, that is SB. So remember this, in LDA you have to find SW and SB. SW represents within, W stands for within class scatter matrix. That means you want to find the scattering of data points within a class. Within the class you want to find the distance. How is the scattering of data points within the class? So that is SW. And between the classes you want to find the scattering, so that is SB. So the formula for SB, that is between, is, because I have two classes, suppose I have two classes here, then it would be n1 into mu1. Mu1 is the mean which I found in the first step, minus mu, which we will see, into mu1 minus mu the transpose, plus, if I am talking about two classes, if I have two classes, then you have to add, plus n2 into mu2 minus mu into mu t minus mu the whole transpose. So here SB is the scattering between the classes. Since it is between the classes, you are finding the difference between the means between the two classes. SW, I said, is the scattering within the class. So the formula is you have to take the data points now into consideration. Remember, for within the class you have to take the data points. So let's say the data points are xi. Okay, since I'm now talking about two classes in this case, so xi minus mu1, where mu1 is the mean of class 1, into xi minus mu1, again is a mean of class 1 transpose. Now you have to use summation, because I have to subtract every data point with its mean. So that means xi belongs to class C1. Okay, so separate in the first term here, subtract every data point with its mean. Repeat it for all the data points, plus now repeat the whole process for class 2. So this first term is for the class 1, this is for the class 2. So same thing, summation of xi belongs to, the only difference is now it is C2 into xi minus mu2, where mu2 is the mean of class 2, into xi minus mu2, mu2 is again class 2, the transpose. Now coming to the step 3, where the goal is what? We have to maximize the ratio between the between class scatter matrix and within class scatter matrix. So you have to maximize FW. What is FW? W transpose into SB, which is a between class matrix, into W divided by W transpose into SW, that is within class scatter matrix W. So basically of finding the ratio between SB and SW, and the ratio has to be maximum. The fourth step is you find the optimal projection vector by solving the generalized eigenvalue problem. So just like how we did it in PCA, now again we need to find eigenvalues and eigenvectors, okay, which will help us to find the optimal projection vector. So we are finding the eigenvalue and the eigenvector for the matrix. What is the matrix here? SW inverse. This is not transpose, it is inverse into SB. So you already have a SW matrix, you already have a SB matrix. So for SW inverse into SB, for this complete matrix we find the eigenvalue and then the eigenvector. The process remains the same like how we did in the PCA problem. The fifth step is now project the data onto the new axis, right? So you do the projection, the data points are projected, and you finally get a Y, which would be your projected data. So basically that projected data, basically what you are doing here is you find the eigenvalues for SW inverse and SB Okay, you find the eigenvalues and the eigenvector. Then final goal is what? We want to maximize the separation. So the maximize JV, that is mu1 vector minus mu2 vector divided by s1 square plus s2 square. So we will do problem with respect to this algorithm in the next class, which will be more clear. These steps are more clear when you look into the problems. So thank you so much. Please watch the next video related to problem of LDA to have these concepts more clearly. Thank you so much, and please subscribe to the channel.